Hello, and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. You know, sometimes when we're sitting around talking about cryptids, a really simple question comes up that we can't answer. And one of those questions is the one we're going to discuss today. And that's, where do cryptids sleep? Let's get weird. Alright, so I know some people think the answer to this is pretty obvious. Anyone who watches Finding Bigfoot says there's Bigfoot nests and, they make these elaborate structures, but I've never seen them find a Bigfoot sleeping in one of those structures.
No, I think the only reason they've claimed that is because they've seen a bunch of food or flag around kind of within those areas.
Right.
But what I've heard actually is that those are gravestones almost. Or like the big tree structures are like graves.
Right.
Which is kind of, a far stretch from living there.
And that actually makes more sense because the structures that I've seen from the supposed Bigfoot structures they're not very, protective. They're not going to protect you from the wind or the cold or the rain or anything else. They're basically open air structures.
Yeah, and they're too small. They would have to squeeze in there from what I can see.
That's true.
Good point. Yeah.
I think the closest to a real house I've ever seen is when there's a Mountain Monsters episode where they went into one of those huts that was completely weaved together with just a bunch of little strands of stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's really detailed, but still, rain could easily get in there.
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to Bigfoot then, we're kind of ruling out the Bigfoot structure as where they sleep. So where do they sleep? You think they just sleep on the ground out in the open?
Well, it's possible maybe they sleep in tunnels. That's possible for dogmen, which we'll get into soon. But it's possible that they just sleep in tunnels. Maybe they travel there too.
Or caves.
Yeah.
I think a bear and a Bigfoot might have a fight if they're in caves.
Yeah.
But tunnels, yeah, maybe. Is that human-built tunnels or underground tunnels?
I think sometimes human-built, sometimes maybe Bigfoot-built, I'm not sure.
I know we've seen on Expedition Bigfoot, there were these big railway tunnels that were closed off. And they suspected Bigfoot might have been getting in there to get out of the rain and maybe even sleeping in there. I mean, people leave a lot of structure around that animals can live in, including Bigfoot.
And then it just becomes abandoned. No one really uses it at some point.
Right. Now, you mentioned Dogman. The idea of Dogman living in tunnels I find interesting just because of the show Skinwalker Ranch. Obviously, the namesake of the show is Skinwalker, but to me, there's a lot of similarities between a skinwalker and a dogman. And in some episodes, they discover that there's this voids under the mesa and under parts of the ranch, which could be the same thing as tunnels, which makes me wonder some of these sightings of the giant bipedal wolf that they're talking about seeing there, that they're calling a skinwalker, that I call a dogman, they would almost have to be living in those tunnels.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's maybe a whole city down there or something. Or they could just be living.
It's an interesting point.
It's the underground civilization. We thought.
But I thought the underground civilization was supposed to be the lizard people.
Oh, crap.
You think the dogman could be the pets for the lizard people?
Maybe. Must be some big lizard people.
Yeah.
It's gotta be double the height of them at least.
Yeah.
It could be related. You never know.
Could be. I mean, Native Americans have had legends about underground cities and underground systems of tunnels all over the western United States. There was even a famous operation, I think it was in the 1920s or 30s, to try to find the underground tunnels under Los Angeles that the Native Americans said were there, and some scientific expedition claimed that they proved the existence of. As far as I know, they never went any further with that. So, if Dogman isn't sleeping in tunnels, where is he sleeping?
Well, I guess he could be sleeping in spaceships for all I know.
Yes.
I mean, maybe aliens have spaceships and then sometimes they just let Dogman go on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they don't sleep.
It's possible.
I mean, there's got to be at least one animal on this planet that literally does not have the function to sleep.
If they're multi-dimensional, if they're from another planet, then Dogman and other animals may not be able to.
Yeah. Or they might sleep in that other dimension. Maybe this is just their they come out here to run and play and hunt and everything else, and then, they sleep back home.
Yeah.
The other thought that comes to my mind, though, is that, wild dogs and wolves have to sleep too. You don't often stumble upon a sleeping wolf or a sleeping coyote or a sleeping wild dog. But when they do sleep, it's usually just, wolves have what they call a den, which can be like a cave structure, or it can be just, some flattened out grass somewhere that they're laying on.
Yeah, it just must be really deep in the forest where humans can't really get to it.
Yeah, and they obviously they're such light sleepers and they're so hyper alert that if they hear humans getting close to it, they'll scatter or they'll attack so that people don't find the den where they're sleeping.
Yeah, I mean, for all I know, Dogman could have like a den that's like covered with trees and stuff like that, where humans rarely ever go.
Right. And I guess we could backtrack and say the same thing about Bigfoot. I mean, most people attribute some sort of heightened sensitivity to Bigfoot as well. So, maybe he's just sleeping on the ground or sleeping in a den somewhere and he hears people coming, so he gets up and disappears or makes roaring noises to scare people off or whatever.
Yeah, that might be when they use their noise the most, maybe.
Yeah.
When people are going near their beds or whatever.
That would make sense. It definitely seems there's a territoriality there, that the easiest way to get a call out of a Bigfoot is to make your presence known close to where they're nesting.
Makes sense. And that's kind of why some Bigfoot hunters look for like tree structures and stuff like that. So it could be signs that it's near their bed or home, something like that.
Yeah, because even if we follow the theory that those are grave markers, it would make sense that they're going to bury the members of their tribe or clan or whatever it is close to where they lived.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the third of our big trio. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. Where's Mothman sleeping?
That's what I'm wondering. Huh.
This is where I really think spaceships.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you on that.
Three.
There are so many UFO sightings seen in conjunction with Mothman, and something about Mothman just screams alien.
Yeah.
I don't know. If he were a natural Earth creature, I would say he's probably sleeping in a tree. Maybe upside down like a bat or something.
Do you think he's sleeping underneath the bridges?
That's possible too.
But there's even like sightings of Mothman like next to UFOs, right?
Yeah. There have been local sightings of him next to UFOs. Matter of fact, there's a sighting of him standing next to a gray alien under a UFO near O'Hare. I'm not saying that I'm giving that sighting 100% credibility, but the sighting was there.
It gives us options.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I should also mention that there have been a ton of, well, I won't say a ton, there have been a few Mothman sightings on Mount Tremblow, which I know you two are painfully familiar with at this point.
Yeah.
Mount Tremblow, it seemed to me like maybe the Mothman was living in like caves up there or, rocky crevices or something.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Sleeping between two big rocks.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe they sleep in tunnels too. I can imagine you could probably make tunnels in like mountains or hills, stuff like that.
Yeah, I will say that Mothman, I think, is the only one of the big three that I wouldn't expect to be sleeping on, like, the grass.
Yeah, probably not.
I just can't see him, like, flattening some grass in the middle of a field and laying down for the night. I think he's off ground somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like there's a lot of similarity in our answers here. I mean, most cryptids are either in a cave, in a tunnel, on a spaceship, in an alternate dimension, or, if you're talking Bigfoot or Dogman, just sleeping on the ground.
That's quite a variety.
It is. And the funny thing is, with all the TV shows out there looking particularly for Bigfoot, and all the research we've done on Bigfoot and Mothman and Dogman, there really isn't any conclusive evidence to point toward any one of those things. There's not one you can say, well, in 80% of the findings, they find Bigfoot hairs woven into this type of structure, therefore this must be the structure he's sleeping in. No, it's every researcher has a different idea on where to find them when they're sleeping.
Yeah, I know some like TV shows, they show like people finding like leaves or something that are like squished to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, Bigfoot must have slept there. But it's hard for me to believe that exactly though.
And there are some regional things to that too. Like in Ohio, they call him the grass man because a lot of people believe that he lives in the tall grass. He'll like flatten a bunch of tall grass. And I've seen them stumble across that before and said, oh, this is a Bigfoot nest.
Yeah, just the problem with that is that, we've gone on a lot of walks on just like forest preserves alone, and we see so much flying grass that could just be wind.
Yeah, it could be wind, it could be people, it could be pets, it could be anything.
Yeah.
So we haven't exactly solved the question, but at least we've shared it with you. So if any of you have any thoughts on where these cryptids are sleeping, we'd love to hear them. Or if you'd just like to weigh in on some of our suggestions, and either you think we're crazy, which apparently a lot of you do, or you think we're onto something with one of our theories, by all means, let us know. As always, thank you for listening, thank you for commenting, and thank you for subscribing.